Welcome to Stay Curious, everybody. I'm your host, Mark Marquette, broadcasting from downtown Titusville, Florida, in the American Space Museum. We are just less than 10 miles away from 56 years ago. History was made when the great Saturn V rocket sent 3 astronauts on their way to fulfill man's greatest journey, the trip to the moon that had been fictionalized, dreamed about, and finally fulfilled over half a century ago. And we're going to breeze through a little recap of all that for you all today. Glad that you're with us. Marty Winkle, my co-producer, actually lived this 56 years ago as a young man and a lead electrical engineer. And Marty, say hi. Did you think much about it this morning when you woke up and realized what you were doing way back when?
Yes, I did. I just happened to notice the date, and memory just takes me right back to that same date.
And with your good memory, they probably seemed like yesterday.
It really did. It does not seem like, how many years now?
56.
It definitely does not feel like 56 years.
Until you bought something at a store and realized, my God, this is 56 years later. But of course, our background green screen here is President Kennedy delivering his speech. And there's Neil Armstrong, forever the first man on the moon, though Buzz Aldrin will say I turned around to him and I was there at the same time. And some of the space workers over my shoulder that gave us $100 to start this museum and build a lasting tribute at Spaceview Park that is like none other on planet Earth. You know I'm all jazzed about this being a Taj Mahal, a Roman Colosseum, an Eiffel Tower of the space industry there. And that statue of President Kennedy, so accurate that his daughter Caroline, when she saw it, wanted a copy of it, but the mold had already been broken. And Sandy Storm is the architect of all this Apollo monuments out there at our Spaceview Park. But we're going to breeze through some things here. We want to tell you Bob Granath is going to be here tomorrow, and he's going to talk about peace in Earth orbit. 50 years ago, the Apollo-Soyuz test project going on in 1975. So, Bob, we look forward to a great program from him, become very popular historian for our American Space Museum Stay Curious podcast here. I'll be glancing at some of your reports here. I see they're already trying to sell me an NFL ticket. Okay, and let me hope you all forgive us for trying to get out of here about 25 after so we can hit our 4:30 board meeting that Marty is a board member of the American Space Museum. And of course, myself as the director of the museum, get called on the carpet there. So there's all of our friends there. Thank you, everybody. Larry Pusker. Yeah, hello, buddy. It's been a while, and we're glad that you're watching. Tommy Usiak, enjoyed your interview. I'll post that link, Tommy. He was interviewed by a Pennsylvania TV station about his photography career. And Jubilee's online there. So let's breeze through. If you don't know it yet, go check it out. You can relive every moment as it happened 56 years ago. I have it on my screen here in the background. You hear the chatter from Houston and the astronauts talking. They're about 6 hours into their journey. They have separated from the solid rocket, the S-4B, after docking with the Lunar Module. And they also do Apollo 13 and 17. So if it's Apollo real time, and it's just fascinating to watch. Particularly Sunday will be the landing on July 20th, and it will parallel it was a Sunday afternoon in 1969, Marty. So I'm going to really enjoy that because Sunday afternoon I'll be kicking back, and at 4:30 I think Eastern Daylight Time is when they land, and the moonwalk starts about 10:30 that night. So but this is fascinating to watch if you're a space geek like me. Of course, over 120 things had to go right on every part of this journey, of this classic map of the lunar journey and return, okay? Like Marty has talked for years with his Lunar Module friends. The mission was not fulfilled until they got off the moon. and then the Lunar Module made it to the command module. Then the Grumman people could cheer, and it was up to the Rockwell people and their command module to get them back safe. Mission control, and right there in the middle, oh yeah, right there is the only woman of all those men in the Launch Control Center. That is Joanne Morgan. She's 85 years old, and I sent her an email saying, I'm thinking about you, Joan, and we're going to mention that you were a pioneer of the space age. Thank you, Marty. There's Joanne Morgan, and she's a Titusville resident. She does live in Montana in her during the summertime, and so she's a very, very important person in NASA management, and broke the glass barrier, or the glass ceiling, I mean, for many a woman out there. She had several management posts that were very important after being an engineer. Fully supported by Rocco Petrone, Debus, and all the big shots that knew she could do her job. That's one of my favorite photographs, Marty, right from the parking lot, man. And look at that telephoto lens. Oh, my God. You can feel the flames coming off that Saturn V F1, those 5 F1 engines there. And the guy over my shoulder, I don't think they were posed, but if I was the photographer, I might have gone over there and said, hey, when it launches, would you hold your hands out and wave the American flag like we do here at every show on Stay Curious. So, and we give some love to our great friend Paul Callie and Chris Callie. Paul Callie passed away, the dad. We will have pictures tonight on Facebook of his famous sketches in the launch control room, but this is his son Chris, and a partner of the museum, and my personal friend that puts these montages together of there's Kennedy and von Braun looking at the Saturn V just weeks before President Kennedy was murdered, and Chris's interpretation of the launch there. And I'm going to end the program with the two of my special interpretations of Apollo 11. Yes, we had a hard road getting there. Look at this sideways rocket. All right, this is why they have destruct mechanisms on there. And a very famous photograph of I think it was I'm going to guess that was a Jupiter rocket, Jupiter class anyway. But that's my way of talking about this map here that has been part of the American Space Museum for all of its 25 years, built in 1972 by father-son. This is the Cape Canaveral area that was seen on a big board, and those launch pads were hidden and would roll over with mechanical motors and gears to a videotape of the history of Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center, done by Al Kohler and Al Kohler Jr. And there is Mr. Kohler. Where's, got to show him right here. Al has got a book that he wants you to have, a free digital download there. Okay, just Google explorespace.info. And you can get this history of the space program that he put together. There's our friend Al when he was interviewed by the BBC. There's the late Lee Solid, Marty, over on the left-hand side. This was during the COVID pandemic 5 years ago, and a lot of interest, of course, in Apollo. And there's Mr. Kohler with his, Dr. Kohler with the hat that he wore, hired as an 18-year-old intern at Kennedy Space Center, and spent his big bulk of his career there until he founded his own company. So just a brag book shot. There's Dr. Kohler and Terry White and Bob Seek, that was part of the Apollo era, and then management of shuttle. And there's Mike Leinbach, and Bob and Mike Leinbach launched about 80 space shuttles total. And Jonathan Ward, that wrote a book with Mike about Columbia, and then Eileen Collins. To get there took a lot of effort, a lot of conjecture what the Russians were up to, as this was a race between the Socialist Soviet state of Russia and the Communist state of Russia. But the Gemini program was so important. You cannot say enough about the rendezvous techniques we did, the spacewalks, and then just living in space for 14 days, proving that the body could endure that. And these brave men were part of the Apollo program because they pioneered the Gemini spacecraft missions with Apollo in mind to learn things that we didn't before or know before. Weren't sure if your heart would just stop beating at a week in space because no gravity. But these are truly our American heroes, and my gosh, we've only got David Scott alive. I see Jim Lovell alive. Nope. They're passed away. And Aldrin, 3 of these wonderful men are still alive. All right. Aldrin is 95, Lovell 97, and Dave Scott 92. That was the target. This is where we wanted to go. The beautiful moon, 240,000 miles away, a 3-day journey. A man's dream of all mankind dreamed about this, probably from cavemen, wondering what was that and how do we get there. And then great works of fiction by H.G. Wells and other authors tantalized it until it finally happened. And of course, we had to have 2 different spacecraft, actually 3 in a way, Marty, because the service module was as much as a spacecraft of its own. It was jettisoned and couldn't come back into reentry. And then, of course, the Lunar Module, a lower descent stage and then an upper ascent stage that's separated. We've talked over the 5 years about Marty's role in that. He combed the wires of the guillotine that separated the tubes and wires at one spot between the 2 stages there. That had to happen instantaneously within fractions of a second, or the whole thing would have fell over or pulled back to Earth. That, of course, is the Apollo 9 shakedown cruise of LEM number 3, Marty, in orbit, in Earth orbit on Apollo 9. The Saturn V rocket, an incredible behemoth of power and genius. And the smallest part of it is, I'll point it out right here. That black part right there, above my finger, yep, that is the instrument unit, the smallest stage of the rocket that Werner von Braun called the most important because it was the brains. Only 6 feet tall. IBM had a lot of secrets in there. And guess what? It saved the life of Apollo 12 when lightning struck the rocket and everything shorted out, except the IU kept everything on course. It could have just gone off course in an instant and was blown apart by the velocity, but it wasn't. And Keith Tyler, Marty, Keith Tyler, 90 years old, I talked to him just an hour ago, and he can't wait to come to our event Saturday to celebrate the Apollo-Soyuz test project. And he said, I'm an IU guy, and I can't wait to see you guys again tomorrow. So Keith, we'll be looking forward to seeing you, buddy. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, and Carlton's reminding us that Charlie Duke is still alive. You missed Charlie Duke.
I did not miss Charlie Duke.
You did?
Charlie Duke was not a Gemini astronaut. I was talking about Gemini astronauts who are alive, right. Okay? Yeah. Charlie Duke was a rookie astronaut. Who said that?
Carlton.
Yep. Carlton are talking Gemini astronauts alive, all right? Charlie Duke, yes, was a rookie. Apollo moonships. This is what I tell people the moonship was. Not very Star Wars or Star Trek looking, okay? Unwieldy, didn't have to work in any atmosphere, so looked like a spider there. But this was our moonship for all those missions to the moon, except for Apollo 8 did not have the lunar module. And a series of things had to happen correctly, and I loved it when we could watch the liftoff on Apollo 15, 16, and 17. But I was a teenager glued to every form of information that you could get, and I meant to print it out. Dave Stange, watching today, said that he was 10 years old. He had a Saturn V rocket in front of him on the floor, and every time that news would come on, he would take apart the Saturn V to what was going on at that period of time. And of course, they did have pretty much 24-hour coverage of this with few interruptions until on the way home. This is what the moon looked like on launch, a very thin crescent. The landing site is still in the shadows of evening on the moon. All right, the moon was only 3 days old, Marty, when they launched. And here's the crew, of course, Neil Armstrong, Mike Collins, and Buzz Aldrin. And only Buzz is alive today to tell the tale, and glad that he is. I love this shot too, with this flame coming out. Oh my gosh, just the dynamics of that's incredible. This is what the moon looked like on July 20th, 1969. The astronauts landing right, I'll have to go this way one day. Let's see. On the arrow, Marty, it's right there. Yep. Go a little bit away. Yep, right in that area up there. That is Mare Tranquility right there. And so when you see the moon, though the moon's in the morning sky, but we see it at that phase, that's what it looked like. They want it to be like 9 in the morning where the shadows are long and easy to see. There's where Marty was pointing that out, so you can see it right there. Mare Crisium is that oval at 3 o'clock, and that's a very noticeable feature to know that you're looking, that they got the moon the right way. And again, a detailed look at the landing site there in the yellow. They named 3 craters after the astronauts that hadn't been there, been named before. And to watch the grainy 2 hours of Buzz and Neil on the moon from a video camera was just an incredible experience as a young man. And of course, all the quarantine. Marty, I thought it was crazy. There ain't no moon germs that could possibly go around the earth and infect the whole civilization. Well, remember what was going on 5 years ago? Yeah, you sure do. You want to forget about it. But good thing that we had that precaution. They did not find any moon germs in the sterilized surface of the non-atmospheric moon. And here they are in quarantine. And you can see this quarantine trailer like I have at Houston at Johnson Space Center Visitors Complex. And I love looking at that. It's so small that they're quarantined there just for a day or two, and then they were taken to Houston and walked out of that into a facility that was quarantined. But they had Scrabble on the table, and of course they're reading newspapers there. Apollo summary: 11 crewed space flights, 27 astronauts flew to the moon, 3 flew twice, 12 Americans walked on the moon. The cost of the program, around $25 billion in 1960s money. That's $250 billion in today's money. 400,000 people were employed in all 50 states, every state and some of the U.S. territories represented by something they did. And over 20,000 companies and institutions involved. Every dollar was spent on Earth. And if you don't think we went to the moon, then I want Marty to give back every dime that he made working to go to the moon. How could it? It's such preposterous, and I get my blood boiling when people say we didn't go to the moon. And I just today scoff it off by saying to them, I guess you didn't get a very good education. So, Marty, what question you have there?
Yes, my question, Mark. Excuse me. Sorry, going back to being quarantined after coming back from the moon, what do you think will happen after we go to Mars? You think we'll be quarantined again?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll have to be quarantined. Yep. And we've learned our lesson there. Mars, particularly, since we know that it had a potential to be in life, could be something really, really crazy going on. But thank you, Marty, for that. And there's Dr. Al Kohler. I appreciate you, my friend. He's a great mentor to me here at the American Space Museum. Like all the Apollo guys, he's pretty long in the tooth, but what an inspiration for me, and what an outstanding man and a wonderful family man. And he has done so much for the American Space Museum, promoting it, writing things like his little book here that I want y'all to have. God bless you, Dr. Al Kohler, and I appreciate all you've done for my short life here at the museum. I wouldn't be where I am as director of the museum was it not for Dr. Kohler and a couple other people that believed in me and what we could accomplish here together. There's Neil's handprints out there at Spaceview Park. We've got a set here in our beautiful Apollo Gallery, and we have a tribute to the Mercury astronauts with handprints of everybody but, of course, Gus out there. And the Gemini space workers on the marble there. The Mercury workers are on the bricks there. And then the Gemini workers on the marble there with the VAB is just on the horizon there across the river. And then, of course, we never would have done it had President Kennedy not pledged to do it before the end of the decade. And because of his assassination, I've been told over and over by space workers that was definitely on their mind, that we were going to fulfill this great president's dream of going to the moon and returning men safely before the end of the decade. And guess what, Mr. President? We did it twice. We did it with double down with Apollo 12 in November 1969. And we continue that legacy with the space shuttle era, doing unbelievable things that change the way we live today. We would not have the conveniences and all the computerized technology if not for what the shuttle era did to test things in space in the payload bay and then build the International Space Station, where over 25 years, Americans, Russians, and people from at least 30 other countries have lived in harmony. Well, I'm going to be watching all the rest of the week until we get the boys back 9 days from now. Apollo Real Time, you'll enjoy watching that yourself. Don't forget, Dr. Kohler's book is a wonderful history of Cape Canaveral there. He used to sell it for $13 and he's offered it free, exploring-space.info. Just Google that there. And on a personal note, when I watched the moonwalk in 1969 as a teenager, very affected by it, of course, I like to pick up a pencil once in a while, and this is a sketch I did the night of July 20th, 1969, just a freehand look at the astronauts on the moon. And something that I enjoy to this day is sketching spacesuits. I'll do a few sketches there. And another tribute to our friend Mr. Callie was I kind of put together a little montage of my own a year ago with just scrap things that were around our storage area there. So there's my little take with Paul Callie's great sketch artwork there represented. There's a moon coin there and a couple other things, and the technique completely stolen in a tribute to Chris Callie's beautiful montages such as this one here, all right, that we showed you earlier. So, in one other parting shot, the whole history of our Apollo program on one poster by Chris Callie there with the Apollo 1. I love seeing the Apollo 1 patch there. Too often the things like this omit the fallen astronauts. That also was part of the impetus for the space workers and the astronauts themselves, that we were going to do this for Gus, Ed, and Roger, who sacrificed their all for us to get to the moon there. That, of course, is Gene Cernan, a painting by Chris Callie on the moon there. Well, thank you for watching RG Jubilee. Tom Usiak, Steve Jokums, Larry Pusker. Good to see Larry again. Carlton Bailey, Dave Stange, Mitch Rothman, Gary Gerald, Doug Forrest, Tom Celentano, and Elena Adhikari. Thank you all for staying curious today. I know that you're going to enjoy seeing Bob Granath tomorrow and a little ASTP program, Peace in Earth Orbit. And if you're local, we're going to have a great program from 1 to 4 on Saturday about the Apollo-Soyuz test project and air it live on our YouTube channels. So look forward to seeing Bob tomorrow and a great history lesson on another amazing chapter of NASA's crewed space flight, that being the Apollo-Soyuz test project, hands shooken in space by Russia and America 50 years ago this week. So until tomorrow, thank you all for watching. Keep your thoughts of Apollo 11, man's greatest adventure, all week long. share it with your friends and family that we did it, and we are proud that we did. Until tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.